This is going to be a very interesting challenge, let me tell you right from the get-go. Even with the most unconventional builds that Payday 2 has to offer, this is definitely going to top the lot in terms of wild and weird. You may recall all the way back in the Link build video from last year that I listed Pokémon Trainer as one of the Smash characters that simply could not be replicated under the constraints of Payday 2 and the Diesel engine. And when it comes to base game Payday 2, that's still entirely correct, for the most part. However, with the power of the game's modding community coursing through our veins, this crime spree run is going to be more than possible and feature plenty of ways to be jeopardized, as this will not only be a Pokémon Trainer crime spree run, but it's also set to be a crime spree Nuzlocke. You might have half an idea on where this is going. First of all, let's get into the specific rules as we take on the Crime Spree League, because unlike Game Freak and the Pokémon Company, we want to ensure a sense of quality control with what we're setting out to do before we put it in front of an audience. Once again, we're starting a new Crime Spree run, going around in circles as we don our best Pokémon Trainer garbs in order to take on Team Gensec and remove them from their champion positions, and woe betide any gym leaders that get in our way. Naturally, this is going to be a modded run, as we'll be running Vanilla HUD Plus as our HUD mod, and more heists in Crime Spree for Crime Spree variety. But we also have Jokermon, Better Jokers, Keepers Joker names, Kill Feed, Useful Bots, and Bot Weapons and Equipment as our run's main components. Not only will these let us keep tabs on who does what, akin to the Joker run from last time, but it will also give us the ability to give them targeting priorities and give them attack commands like a proper trainer. We will also be giving them Pokemon names with Keeper Joker names, and as for Jokermon itself, this fantastic mod by Hoppip allows us to keep and carry over Jokered cops from heist to heist, allowing them to level up into stronger than average units and become worthwhile forces of nature. I thought to just keep the Jokers as they were for a run like this, but I figured that if they're going to be important figureheads for my team, then I'll want them to be as highly performing as possible to avoid having to do too much busy work. This is essentially a very mod-heavy run, but other mods will be restricted or visual only where possible. I'll leave a link to all of the ones I used in this video in the description. In order to make things harder on ourselves as a hard-working but infamous Jokermon trainer, our Jokermon mod will be activated with the Nuzlocke mode turned on, meaning that we can only convert one Joker, or two with confident taste, in any one heist. And once a Joker dies, they're gone for good and need to be replaced. Managing our converts in the middle of a heist will be key to success in this run. I'll also add that once I heal my Jokermon team, I will not be allowed to heal the team for the heist after that, to prevent them from being functionally immortal. By now, you might have noticed the lack of me going over how we'll only be able to use weapons that the character uses in Smash or within their home series. That's because this time around, things will be handled a little differently. See, Pokemon trainers really only have two main items of use to them: Pokeballs for capturing Pokemon on the field, and various implements to help said Pokemon in battle. Since guns aren't exactly outlined as legal tools in the trainer guidebook, I'll be doing things a touch differently than usual. We can't exactly take the approach that Palworld seems to be going for, as us Jokermon trainers have standards. Or at least I do. Here, I will not be allowed to directly kill any enemy in any heist. This means no primary or secondary kills, no melee or throwable kills, and no other external means of causing lethal damage, such as with explosives, fire, poison, or vehicles. I will be racking up body counts on each heist regardless, as sentry gun kills seem to count as my own, but as long as it sticks to the sentry gun and not me, then that will count as legal. This means I'm going to have to be extra careful around tasers, as well as any heist that involves the usage of a vehicle. Damage can still be dealt by these methods in order to reliably convert Jokermon on the field, but it cannot be lethal, otherwise the heist will be marked as a failure. Basically, as long as my name and my name alone is not first on the kill feed, then all is well. This also means that any stealth-only heist I encounter will have to be done as a pacifist, no matter how demeaning a decision that will end up being. To make up for this fact, we'll need our 6-strong Jokermon team to do the heavy lifting while we focus on objectives. Half of that team will be the ever-reliable crew AI, who will not just be allowed, but they will be mandatory for this run. Our 4th member, more as a supportive unit than anything else, is a lone sentry gun to help cover the others. The final 2 members of the team will need to be Jokermon that will have to be captured on the field, but we'll find ways to deal with that soon enough. We also have 2 unique challenges on our hands as we aim to get as far as possible. First, we gotta catch them all, as per the Pokémon theming. As such, I've put together a standard completable Joker dex that we'll be aiming to fill out, sort of akin to the hit list we had in the Joker run. These range from the standard spawns that we'll find just about anywhere, to the more limited types such as hostage rescue units, and to completely unique Jokers such as the undercover agent in Reservoir Dogs, and all 4 of the masked guards in Bullock's mansion. This also means that I'll have to go out of my way to go into certain heists, sometimes multiple times in the run, in order to pick them up. There are 27 entries in all that I'll be counting, so we want to try and keep this crime spree going for long enough to get at least one of each type. And secondly, we need to have at least one of our captured Jokermon to reach level 100, the level cap for Jokers under this mod. This means that we'll need to manage our units well enough to let them survive to that threshold. After that, it's back to the standard ruling, where we will only get 1 reroll per mission selection, and we have 3 stocks to get as far as we can. Once we fail 3 times, that's that, run over. As you can imagine by the video's length when you clicked on this is probably going to be my biggest undertaking yet in a Payday 2 challenge run. But we're all about challenge. With all of that said and done though, it's time to train ourselves up and begin our journey onto the victory road to become the most infamous Pokemon trainer like no one ever was. From the get-go, thanks to our baseball caps and casual wear, I can say with confidence that this costume is about as accurate to the part as we've been compared to previous runs. And you might notice that we're not Hoxton this time. In commemoration of Joy being the first of the Payday 2 heisters joining the original 4 in Payday 3, I figured she'll be given the lead role for this challenge run. Out of everyone in the Payday gang, she'd probably be the most likely to want to be a Pokemon trainer, having been introduced as a poster girl for the Nintendo Switch. But desire and looking the part is only a small portion of what being a Jokermon trainer is all about. In order to be well equipped going out into the tall grass to capture our first Jokermon, we need to be properly kitted up for the occasion. And for the first time in this sort of run, there are no set primary or secondary weapons that are recommended, seeing as how there's no reason for us to be attacking enemies head-on for 98% of this run. As such, the only recommended options that I can provide are weapons with low damage so as not to kill anyone, or high ammo reserves to be used as fuel for the sentry gun. The saw is also a valuable option to be used as a utility option to speed up objectives involving breaching or deposit boxes. Just be aware that using the saw in conjunction with sentries can lead to some ammo problems though. It's a similar story with melee too. In general, you'll probably want one of the more low damage, high knockdown weapons such as the Clash Shovel or Leather Sap, but you can also use the likes of the Buzzer or Electrical Brass Knuckles to guarantee a convert, more or less. As a Jokermon trainer, we need to be resourceful enough to use whatever tools we can get our hands on that will help us convert units. For our deployables, we'll be using the Sentry Gun as well as a single unupgraded ECM Jammer. While the Sentry Gun will be used as our de facto pocket Jokermon to fill up the 6th and final slot in the team, the ECM Jammer we'll be packing with Jack-of-all-trades Aced will be more useful in the event of dealing with turrets, SWAT or otherwise, that need to be bypassed or destroyed. It'll temporarily convert turrets to fight for us when deployed, which should hopefully make a difference in certain heists that involve them. Failing that, activating the feedback could prove to be a crucial escape option, even if it affects our Jokermon in the process. For our armor, we'll be going with the 2-piece suit. And for our perk deck, there are a few that can be used as effective options for a run like this. To help brute force objectives, you could use the likes of Kingpin or Sicario. For pure health and defense, you could use Stoic, and for health and control, you could use Muscle. For this run, I decided to go with Kingpin, not just to make myself a better Pokemon Kingpin than the likes of Giovanni, but also because the health bonus in the injector should also be useful to help take the heat off of my allies and prevent them from being mowed down completely. Ash Ketchum is the kind of trainer willing to put his body on the line to protect his Pokemon, and even as an infamous Jokermon trainer heister, I can respect that kind of attitude, meaning we'll be doing something similar. The build will need to be centered around making the converts and sentry as good as possible, as well as helping the ability to convert units. So for once I won't need to spec into medical skills, as I can simply rely on the crew AI to help me up if I get into a spot of bother. I also want to avoid any skills that boost my damage, seeing as how I don't want any non-sentry killing power this time. In Mastermind, this means acing every single skill in the controller branch except for Forced Friendship. This will make our converted units as good as they can be, and as long as I have one deployed on the field, they will be my source of healing during a heist. Stockholm Syndrome Aced will also be a useful get out of jail free card if it comes down to it. In Enforcer, Resilience Aced into Transport, Die Hard and Shock and Awe Basic in the Tank branch, and Scavenger Basic into Portable Saw Aced in the Ammo Specialist branch is what I decided to roll with. Aside from the typical tank branch skills, I opted to get Portable Saw Aced in the event that I felt that the saw was needed. In Technician, for once I'm not just using the skill tree for drill skills, as I aced every single skill in the Engineer branch except for Tower Defense, as well as picking up Hardware Expert Basic. This will help boost our sentry's effectiveness and allow us to bring the ECM jammer as backup. Not having Drill Sergeant aced will hurt, but I suppose it will give our Jokermon more time to level up in each heist. In Ghost, I picked up Chameleon Basic, Duck and Cover and Parkour Basic, and Second Wind and Optical Illusions Basic into High Value Target aced. If you watched my Joker Crime Spree run, you'll understand that this will be an integral part of the run. By pointing my weapon at specials, I can effectively give my team attack commands on important targets, just like a real trainer. And in Fugitive, I picked up 9 Lives Aced and Martial Arts Aced. Martial Arts Aced will give our melee strikes more knockdown chance, which may prove helpful in a pinch to convert enemies. Just like last time, it's not going to be a video like this without touching upon the crew AI themselves. Unlike the Joker Crime Spree run though, we won't be going over them for too long since we're not having them dress up after anyone in particular. So, let's introduce our 3 starters that will make up the mainstay half of our squad. First in the spotlight is Dallas. Ever present and ever reliable, he has stuck around as the face of the franchise since the beginning, and as such is our designated Pikachu of our team. Don't ask me why I edited that. He is a very reputable steel type with a steady hand, and I kitted him up with LMGs to make him reliable at both close and long range. Next up, Hoxton may not be the star of the show for this one, but like hell was I ever going to leave him on the bench for this one. My regular main is without a doubt a Dark Poison type with the kind of venom that comes out of his mouth on the regular. With Hoxton's skill tree having Akimbo proficiency, I figured Akimbo weapons would be the perfect fit for him. Either he'll pop plenty of heads if he rolls pistols or shotguns, or he'll shred dozer faceplates if he rolls SMGs. And finally, I've grown far too accustomed to Duke to leave him out of a run, so he'll occupy the final slot. A man of class and experience like him would undoubtedly be the perfect ghost type, and will be super effective against the cops attempting to stop us, seeing as how we'll be cutting them up with sniper rifles to take them out from a distance. And just as a quick aside, our optional side quest for this one is fairly simple. Bot Weapons and Equipment not only allows for random category-born weapons to be selected for a heister, but we can also set their outfits and masks to be random each heist too, giving them unique looks for every part of the run. So, rather than go out of my way to murk someone particular or do certain heists, I'm instead going to challenge my 3 main cohorts into bringing their best drip to each heist. Anyway, with all of that over and done with, let's get started. We have a long journey ahead of us after all. The first trek into the tall grass is always an important one for a trainer like myself, so we need to work out just where to start our adventure. This is more important a decision than usual this time, as the location will determine our first captured unit types, and how our run will shape out in the early game. In this case, the first stop is to Counterfeit. Want to see how that started? Well, it can only go up from here, can't it? By technicality, that should have been an early stock loss, but seeing as how I had my wires crossed by not having Team AI in preparation for another video that's coming soon, I figured that a simple reset to actually get my cohorts into the fray would absolve me of my mistake. Starting the run for real this time, Counterfeit was chosen as my first destination for the simple reason of getting my early plan into motion. Since the stealth portion provides 2 sets of 2 beat cops, one wielding a handgun and another wielding a revolver, I would want to fully stealth that section. That would get me access to both of the revolver-toting cops to give me some good early firepower. At least, that was the plan on paper. You see, Counterfeit's stealth section is pretty wonky when you decide to go at it as a pacifist, as it sometimes decides to break stealth for no adequately explained reason, as it did with me this time around. Disappointing, but I got one of the Bronco cops at level 33, so that'd just have to make do. It took him a bit to warm up, but once I got my sentry stationed up on top of Mr. Wilson's grill, he quickly got to work on building up a body count of his own as I admired Dallas's colourful Texan bird outfit. After the 6-minute mark, I happened to come across a tan unit, also at level 33, who was wielding a shotgun. The game may have scuffed my plan A, but grabbing one of these guys early on would make a very decent plan B indeed. Not only did he start getting to work immediately, but the new partner seemed to give the Bronco cop some additional fire under him, as he swiftly raced his way to the first of many level ups in this run. To clarify, it seems Jokermon get levels either by killing or assisting with a kill. The amount they level up by depends on if the unit in question is a special unit and what type of unit it is, with bulldozers and boss mobs essentially acting as free level ups should they happen to get that killing blow. Of course, there was a temptation to get another shotgunner into the team immediately, but Nuzlocke rules prevented me from doing so. Just a minor setback though, as we'll have plenty of time to rectify that. While the Bronco cop did take quite a beating by the time the water objective was done, he had racked up a decent kill count of 15 and was close to level 36 by the time I made my escape. With that, we have our first Jokermon on the team, and as such, we have our first naming ceremony. The level 35 Bronco Cop would be christened after my favourite Pokémon, Aegislash, and the level 33 Shotgunner would be named Onyx. Not the names you'd usually associate with starter Pokémon, but that's just how it is today. Since the two had taken a beating in the final stages of Counterfeit, I used up an early heal to get them back to full health. My best bet is that the funds used for healing Jokermon is pulled from offshore, which I have plenty of, so I'm not even remotely concerned about running out anytime soon. Now that they were back to peak condition, the next stop was to Engine Problem, Day 2 of Big Oil. It was here that Joy decided to be the absolute worst.
Knock knock, it's Yuri. You're in for some bad jokes.
As if there was a degree of sentience involved, the game decided to respond to this immediately by having a third god spot the mess I was leaving behind right in front of a camera. Well, that just gave me the opportunity to grab one of the 3 Secret Service agents as one of my new recruits to fill another slot in the decks. And he immediately established himself by sniping his colleague outside in between some shutters. Usually, this day would be a pain to defend 2 different power boxes in. But not only were they fairly close to each other, but I'm also backed up by 5 bloodthirsty maniacs and a sentry gun. With that, I can simply split them into teams of 3 to defend the boxes on my behalf. This gave me the space I needed to hold out for the lab to open, and for me to find out that it was a toss-up between engines 3 and 6. There is something satisfying about bonking cops with a shovel, but it won't get much more of a spotlight past this point. I'll probably save that for a Lethal Company employee challenge run, if anything. It did take both engines before I could leave, but all this did was give me the chance to sit back and watch my army of 6 go to town, giving the opportunity for Aegislash and Onyx to level up multiple times. Moments like these where the whole gang can fight as one are just a joy for any trainer like myself. Just before the second engine was confirmed, I did manage to bolster my squad a little bit more by getting another shotgunner heavy SWAT, who would at least prove to be a good supplement, especially given how wounded Aegislash had become. Sadly, due to the mechanics of the game and the Jokermon mod, certain enemy types are not available for most heists, so for now this will be the last we'll be seeing of the plucky Marsh Shadow. In any case, Right Track, the first day of Election Day, was the perfect antidote for my squad, as I could simply spawn Aegislash behind a container for the speed boost, head into the docks, tag a wrong truck, and leave immediately with the help of my ECM jammer. Sometimes you just need a little bit of guile to get yourself a free team heal. With a reroll, I landed on a diamond store, which I figured would be a good stomping grounds for my team. I didn't have any immediate plans to bolster the roster further, instead looking to train Aegislash and Onyx as much as possible. Of course, going loud means things can spiral out of control quickly. Not only did the escape van go as far away from my holdout position as possible, but there was also a SWAT turret gatekeeping the path to make it there. With a set of 3 silenced Grims set up to each deal a measly 11.6 damage, it was going to take a while to whittle it down, with 22 minutes having passed on the clock before I dealt the final blow. With the mechanical Snorlax out of the way, I could finally get moving on the 14 bags of diamonds I'd need to secure. Though not before adding a 3rd shotgunner heavy SWAT to the team. I'd much rather have these guys than the Car 4 variants, which might as well be Stormtroopers to me. Either way, it ended on another successful mission, with Aegis moving well into the 40s when all was said and done. This moved me on to the jewelry store, where I went on an unprompted stealth clear, dominating the guards and controlling the store, even making use of the Joker skills to spawn Aegis and help me move the 8 bags I needed to the van as quickly as possible, earning the group another heal opportunity. That said, they weren't all that banged up after the Diamond Store fiasco, so I decided to forge on for another mission first. The Diamond was next on the hit list, and my first opportunity to get another new addition to the Joker decks in the form of the security guard standing outside. With a compact 5 in hand, I figured he might be a useful addition to the team, but it wasn't long before tragedy struck. While dominating the camera guard, a slip-up ended up causing him to be converted with 2 Jokers already active, sacrificing the guard I dominated just a few minutes ago in his place. It's that sort of mistake that you can't help but wince at, as I traded out a good security guard for a bad one, or at least that's what I thought would happen. Turns out this plucky guard may have been more potent than I thought, or maybe he binge plays Halo in his spare time. Even though he was armed with nothing more than a measly Shimano 88, he had surprising DPS potential and was more than willing to face tank any threat that came his way while still coming out on top, leveling up multiple times in his rampage. In fact, by the time I managed to breach the Diamond exhibit, he'd managed to rack up 34 kills by himself and dinged level 30. Not bad, considering he was 26 when accidentally recruited. I was given a simple enough tile pattern to make my way to the stone, and the wait for Bile to arrive was little more than a victory lap for Aegis and the pistol menace that had performed far above his pay grade. He may not have been what I wanted, and I certainly wouldn't put him in with the major leagues, but Squirtle here may prove to be a useful backup option if the need arises. The next stop on the Jokermon journey was the Ukrainian prisoner, which saw the first crash of many going forward. With the multitudes of mods I'm packing, I'm not that surprised. Still, it was only one crash in several hours of gameplay, so the mood was still high going into the run back. Here I converted a level 31 security guard, this time the compact 5 variant. I wanted his expertise on the Diamond, but getting it here would prove to be just as good. And what a beast he'd turn out to be as well. With a SWAT turret to deal with as I drilled into the van, I kept him and Aegis in the main building as I had my crew AI to back me up. Once back inside, I grabbed the keycard and brought my crew into the warehouse to free Vlad. It took him 3 defibrillations before we could finally get him moving, but luckily the security guard was way more than super effective in helping Aegis, the crew AI, and the sentry to keep the cops away. In fact, not long after, I managed to get another new name off the list in the form of the Green SWAT. These shotgunner variants are quite rare and tend to only show up in specific heists, so this would be a good partner for my dominant guard as we pushed into the second half of the heist. Like the loyal trainer I am, I made sure to wait for both of my new recruits to join me at the gate before working on forging a path through the docks. Holdout sections like this building are the absolute bread and butter of this setup, and just allowed the SMG slaughterhouse to keep racking up kills quickly. Hell, even the battering he took in that holdout didn't seem to slow him down all that much, as he got a solo kill on a taser before finishing off a bulldozer in the space of a second. Brutal. The final holdout at the base saw this guard go on his final killing spree, and curiosity really was getting the better of me as I stalled for time at the escape just to see how high I could get his tally to go, which came to a close at a count of 83. What an absolute unit. That turned out to easily be the best debut performance of any Jokermon I had recruited or ever would recruit. I could think of no one else to award the prestigious Pikachu moniker to than that impressive security guard, and safe to say we will be watching his career with great interest. With Venusaur also joining the ranks as a reserve member, it was time to move on to the search. As you'd expect, this is to grab myself both variants of the FBI office agent, who will prove to be my main threats in this heist. Plus, with both starting at level 38, they already have a good start on hand. Of course, I still get pasted by the other pistol sentinels inside the conference room while trying to put down my sentry, but my crew thankfully had the right idea. I also can't help but wonder just how dated this run looks, given that the Christmas variants of certain maps will be popping up all over the place. No point dwelling on that though, as I could simply hold the operations room down with near impenetrable efficiency, making my way through the various tasks with Duke to back me up as I go. The final push did get a little dicey given that there was a sniper lying in wait for me, but I simply bashed him to the floor with my leather sap before Duke finished him off. A comfortable win for my party in the end. Using up my heal, I headed into White Xmas, feeling confident with my current team composition. Plus, Aegislash helped to convert this level 34 blue SWAT to add another unit type to the roster, even pinging level 50 himself before being subbed out. The blue SWAT took a bit of a beating, I'll admit, but I'll chalk up his suboptimal performance to the fact that White Xmas just isn't kind to most Jokered units. Either way, the win was pretty much assured on such an easy heist. I didn't think it was going to be the case on the reroll I received afterwards, which was Hoxton Revenge. Here I took the initiative to capture a safe house guard for the growing army, and even found the panic room in a fairly favourable position for my team to defend. With the drill in place and my team in position, we could get to work holding the area down. The holdout was even complete with Hector taunting us all the while, completely oblivious to what would be waiting for him on the other side of the door. In fact, I'm just going to show you the team's battle with Hector uncut, because I feel like it sums up the majesty of the Jokermon build far better than I ever could. Yeah, I'm beginning to see why Pokemon battles tend to be one-at-a-time tag team fights, because there was absolutely no way that Hector was ever winning that 6v1 situation. To round off a very good heist, Bile decided to drop himself right in front of our holdout position, meaning I could gather all of the available evidence on the map with ease. Refreshing the team's health again, it was time for an oddball, Midland Ranch. Usually I wouldn't bother with a place like this, but there is a unique variant of the Bronco Cop that is ripe for the picking. The Texas Ranger. They didn't do too badly all things considered, but the pressure was mounting against them by the time we breached the gate, meaning I'd need to sub him and Aegislash out. Still, their combined efforts brought us onto the second half of the heist, and the combination of Onyx and Kingler proved effective enough to hold the line and allow a safe extraction via boat. This moves us swiftly onto the breakout, where priority 1 was to nab one of the prison guards at the very start. Deciding to throw Kingler into the mixer owing to him being the healthiest unit I could call upon early, we began to push through the streets of Washington DC. Sadly, SWAT turrets can always throw a spanner in the works, as my Jokermon would get absolutely shredded by those things, forcing me to keep them on the bench until I could work my way to safety with my crew behind me. Thankfully, once inside the hilariously out-of-date parking garage, I could call back Kingler as well as Incineroar to work on the remaining objectives. Ultimately, nothing too straining at that point, with the both of them reaching level 37 by the end of it. And that was ultimately where I had decided to leave day 1 of recording. This was an ideal framework for things to come, but the journey was only just beginning. Day 2 began about as climactically as it can get, with my newly healed squad tackling the framerate starving Hell's Island. This proved an effective opportunity to grab a regular Murky Water unit as well as a light Murky to tick 2 names off the list in one go, making these 2 my Jokermon of choice in the beginning of this heist to leave my better units for the final third. The light unit ended up getting overran before we even made it to the security office, but at least the standard Murky did decently enough, being able to last all the way to the push to the roof, where I substituted him in favour of Aegislash and Onyx. From there, we were able to use our Jokermon to ruthless efficiency as we forged away across the castle escape route. With the power of friendship and thousands of bullets, we were able to push to the helipad and help Locke and Bane make it out of the prison complex with around 40 seconds still on the clock. On the following heist, Panic Room, I tried throwing Aegislash and Onyx at the gangsters, who were understandably not that keen to discuss things peacefully with them. I actually threw my ECM down at the beginning and never really realised that you could delay the initial alert at the start of the heist. Either way, the first of the problems that arose came when the crew and my jokers refused to enter the room that Chavez was in, meaning it was all up to my sentry to solo him. Things went smoothly from there though, with the holdout on the saw objectives going cleanly before mobilizing the team on the roof to handle the influx of snipers. Usually this would be a pain, but since my crew AI are geared up identically to the Joker run to be able to prioritize snipers, this wouldn't be too big an issue. In fact, I was pretty impressed with just how well the team were able to hold the roof, allowing me to move around it with much more freedom than I could ever remember doing on this heist. With Duke taking out the final sniper, Bile felt content to drop the C4, getting everything rigged up and swapping out Aegislash and Onyx in preparation for the final holdout. While waiting on Bile's return, I secured another Bronco Cop for the collection, and I just seemed to break as I died twice in rapid succession to the influx of beat cops. But with Kingler and Incineroar in place on the roof, it was time to deal with the final roof defense, which the team passed with flying colors. On the way out, I recalled my shotgunner duo to pick up another beat cop, this time the Compact 5 variant, who I named after Quagsire to join his Bronco brethren in the reserves. If this variant of beat cop turns out to be anything remotely close to the performer that Pikachu is, then he will be a worthwhile addition to the squad. It's remarkable just how much the crew manhandled what would usually be a problematic heist, which just goes to show how potent Jokermon can be. One full restore later and we're off to the art gallery, getting caught almost immediately. Not to worry though, since this will largely involve a holdout, and I don't need to remind you about how this team is built to deal with that stuff. Gathering into the security room for 5 minutes is even better, given that we literally have a choke point to funnel cops into. After reaching level 59, I decided to sub out Aegislash to make room for the latest enemy to hit crime spree at this point, a level 26 Zeal Marksman. Sadly, this unit is not all that. It effectively loses all of their potency when converted and serves no real purpose other than to distract. As such, I'm not holding out much hope for Magikarp to level up too many times, given that he's basically just a toddler compared to Duke. He is good at getting assists though. I guess he's at least capable of being a team player. Once the hack was complete and the assault ended, I decided to make a grab for all of the prerequisite paintings before holding out for one more assault wave. This was definitely worth the wait, as I got a front row seat of Magikarp actually doing something, before pushing out to the van once the assault ended. I won't lie, Duke essentially gained the role of the main character in that heist, but it's tempered by the fact that the Zeal Marksman got a whopping 3 kills. For a unit that bad, that is effectively the equivalent of encountering a legendary Pokémon in the wild. The garage escape that followed was a freebie to push things back to the team heal threshold once again. Nothing too straining at all. The next heist would prove to be the next bump in the road though. Bullock's mansion is not only demanding when done loud, but also houses 4 unique Jokermon to catch. His 4 masked security guards. At the very least, I could knock 2 of them out in one run, but just 1 minute into the first attempt as I pushed for Bullock's office, the game crashed. Okay, fair enough. Attempt number 2, I ended up getting caught out by a classic stealth domino effect, but I made an effort to collect 2 of the guards I needed. This run saw me make it all the way to the man himself, in which I whacked him over the railing and watched as his released shark devoured him. No, I'm not an accessory to murder, why would you even think that? You might notice my less than enthused tone, and that's because during the holdout in Bullock's office, the game crashed again. Clearly something wasn't agreeing with this heist. Luckily, third time was the charm as I secured both the turquoise and bird guards to get half of the Bullock checklist down pat. This heist is a bit of a meat grinder for the unprepared, especially with the high power Federales, but at least Pikachu is compatible with this heist, meaning I could have his level of expertise on deck. Teamed up with Kingler and my sentry, he made an immediate impact, and once my crew AI joined the fray, the inner sanctum entrance was locked down tight, giving me the space to gather the code fragments. Once again turning Bullock into fish food, I made sure to hold the office with my team as best as I could, while praying that the game would hold on for long enough to clear the heist. The final holdout in the courtyard would see me utilize Squirtle, Pikachu's predecessor from the Diamond, as well as Venusaur, and they proved effective enough at holding the line long enough for Bile to arrive and to allow me to finally make it out of this heist. Oof, that was a rough one, and my team definitely felt the effects. But there was little time for sentiment as up next was Boiling Point. Admittedly, this was only to secure the 2 Merc types exclusive to this heist, both of which were quickly achieved. The 2 served well for breaching the lab, with my remaining team holding out to scan a test subject. Before making it out, I made sure to destroy the ceiling turret myself, as kills on turrets like them don't count as kills on the counter in the bottom right, making them fair game for me to destroy. After that, pushing out into the open with the server in tow was a fairly straightforward affair, not even running into a single sniper on the way. I guess I just went fast enough that they didn't spawn in time? Either way, we absolutely take those. With the team refreshed, Transport Crossroads was the next destination, and an opportunity to chalk off yet another entry in the Joker decks by nabbing a Gensec security officer. After taking in the sight of Darlison Aegis / getting intimate with one of the security vans, I managed to get started on the deposit boxes with my saw and discovered 4 money bags in one van, in a similar situation to the Joker run. As I decided to drill the remaining 2 vans to leverage more level ups, more strange happenings began to occur with this particular Gensec van, as it practically acted as a clown car with how many cops poured out of the back upon opening it. A little unsettled by that occurrence, I had my cohorts clear them out before hauling the money bags to the van under the cover of my allies' gunfire. It wasn't all that hard really, just a little tedious more than anything else. I knew what would be capable of testing the team's mettle, however. Henry's Rock is already a demanding heist, but with my squadron of attackers, I felt surprisingly ready, even with Kingler injured from the previous heist. Helping him was the ever-powerful Pikachu, who was incredibly efficient as always. Even under the pressure of the murky swarms, he was still persistent, helping Kingler and dispatching an Izma-wielding bulldozer to rocket his way to level 53 before we'd even got to the terminal in the main room, before taking out another dozer himself to reach level 55. The weapons lab is usually nightmarish, but thanks to having 6 heisters worth of firepower, it's actually not as bad as it could be. In fact, the hardest part of this heist seems to be just having them actually path their way around the facility in the first place, as they just seem to stand in the main hall or wander around aimlessly as if they're navigating Mount Moon without flash. Once I actually had the space to work and the med supplies gathered, the weapon charging went off without any interruptions, allowing the team to hyper beam the door and gain the first coffer. The computer lab was just a time sink more than anything else, and I was eventually able to get the second box into my reach. Though this did come at a cost. Off in the distance, the sentry gun I placed to cover the power box for the crane became overran by the murky assault and exploded, marking its first true death in the run. A bad thing to lose, but not to worry, it can be rebuilt. On the way to the final charge, I took the time to grab a level 40 Murky Heavy, if nothing else to at least give me an additional team member to work with. And then I got a significantly less impressive level 24 Heavy afterwards. Swell. Still, this was the hand I was dealt, so I moved back to the entrance and started the turret hacking, holding the line with my crew AI. Since the lower level Murky I recruited was likely not going to be fit for purpose, I decided to just let him go down fighting until his wounds finally caught up with him. With Quagsire now on the field and the level 40 Murky seemingly sitting the last charge out, I waited out for the final break in the assault before securing both boxes into the chopper. That one definitely needed a team heal afterwards, but if you thought that was a meat grinder of a heist, you've seen nothing yet. In order to get the last of the unique Murky Water units, we're going to have to tackle the White House. Only a true Jokermon champion can come out on top against a heist like this. With my previous heisting knowledge, I was able to get my way into the West Wing and into the Oval Office. Sadly, my attempts to grab the safe's code proved to be the killer, as I ended up having to tackle more guards than I could reasonably deal with, sending things into Loud. Luckily, I was able to grab one of the Murky Secret Service agents before setting him, Aegis and the Sentry up in the Oval Office. It was basically just a test of endurance for me and my crew, but they were all remarkably able to keep everyone at bay until the safe opened and we could proceed to the P-Arc. This was where the real problematic part begins. Going out to restart the hack during assault waves is practically a death sentence, even under the power of the Kingpin syringe, with the only thing capable of cheering me up being the ragdolling that Hoxton's twin shotgun kills provided. That said, the first hack isn't that big an issue. It's tedious, but I can get it done in decent time. A few assault waves of waiting is something I'm okay to do if it will get me results. It was once the second hack started that things got dicey. Halfway through, the 2 ceiling turrets decided to show themselves and put up the single biggest blockade in this entire run. I could control them with an ECM for 20 seconds, but that was about the extent of my power. If I were to clear this heist without losing a stock or several of my teammates, those things were going to have to go. What follows is this becoming an inadvertent experience grinding cave as I used my Shimano 88 to take pot shots at the turret that had a direct line of sight on the P.O.C. entrance, all while my Jokomon took full advantage of the opportunity given to level up as much as their health bars allowed them to. With how much I was going to have to wait, this really was just turning into a rerun of the final battle in the Joker run from last year. Only this time, my party size is doubled, but my hands are tied. Plus, if I accidentally shot a Murky to death while firing at the turret, that would invalidate the run, adding another layer of jeopardy. But I am nothing if not a patient trainer. When two Murkies managed to breach the room, we managed to dominate them in record time, which was just as well because the assault was ending and I was grey. As such, I simply just did as much to the turret as I could before being traded back instantly. Pikachu getting back into the front lines proved to be absolutely clutch, not for the first time mind you, with his SMG giving him the ability to quick attack any Murky that tried to breach our sentry nest. It was imperative then that I keep him out for as long as I could, and boy did he capitalize. By the time I deemed that he was getting too injured to keep going, he had added another 53 kills to his already impressive tally and raced up to level 67. I then decided to shuffle the tactics a little bit by having Jigglypuff and the newly cycled Quagsire to hold from the staircase alongside my sentry to give the crew AI some much needed support from the rafters. With any luck, this would mean they wouldn't come under as much pressure. Sadly, I wouldn't get to know with these two as I made a bold and reckless move by dosing myself up, pulling out my twin compact 5s and spraying at the left-hand turret until it exploded. Now, why couldn't I have just done that from the beginning? This bit of recklessness did end up bringing me into custody, but with one turret down, I had the space to actually get the objective moving and complete hack number 2. It was here that a new and unexpected hero would get to play his part. Marshadow. Yep, the Secret Service agent we converted all the way back in only the second heist we had was now cycled back into the team, such as the amount of Jokomon we've used in this mission alone. Alongside Magikarp and the Sentry, he was going to have to prove himself now. To be fair, he wasn't the worst, with his pistol providing some covering fire as I mulled over how to get rid of the final turret. One spray down up close and personal was enough to tear the shielding off, but it did make me go down for my troubles. Once I regrouped with the others and waited for the assault to end as Marshadow racked up a decent kill count, I was ready to go back and finish what I started, but I guess the other turrets saw what I did to the first, as it seemed to sink back into the ceiling and never came back. Frankly, Whitney's Miltank had nothing on those P.O.C. turrets. This was huge, as it gave me the ease of life I needed to finish the final hack and get at the pardons inside the vault. That said, the Murkies all came after me as I went down just after getting ready to make a break for it and brought me to my final life. Luckily, my boy Hoxton was more than ready to run to my rescue, and I managed to pick myself out of the would-be coffin to race to safety, recalling my sentry as well as Magikarp and Marshadow as we made a break for the surface. Back outside, I called upon the Murkies from Hell's Island, Sharpedo and Weedle, to act as the final vanguards while working on the AA gun hack. The resistance we met at the foot of the White House was peanuts compared to what we left behind. The crew held firm, Hoxton was sending Murkies flying in their droves, and I provided their support by marking the important targets and shouting the occasional word of encouragement, as a trainer should. Before long, Locke finally touched down and put an end to this titanic war of attrition, where the game seemed to freeze up and crash upon completion. Thankfully though, all of that progress had saved in that instance, so we don't have to slog through that again. Are you guys not entertained? We've gone from basically having nothing of note to talk about to nearly 2 pages worth of paragraphs detailing this hour-long war against the forces of the White House, with thousands of kills made across the entirety of my personal death squad. And as for the Secret Service Murky we captured to start this whole thing, I called him Bidoof. It just felt fitting, really. With most of the team having gotten some time in the sun after that mess, it was time to earn another full restore in Prison Nightmare. For the first time since the Link run, if memory serves. This one would have the added jeopardy of the Headless Skulldozer, but aside from that, this was fairly standard. About the only thing to talk about is Aegislash finishing the heist in a really nice position. With the team now healed, I took to the FBI server mission. I guess the logic was that since it's a holdout heist, I would be fine. Not a whole lot to say here. Onyx and Aegislash leveled up again. Fairly straightforward heist, all as well. Speaking of holdout heists, Cook-Off would provide the absolutely perfect holdout to test my crew's mettle. But let's not act like that's the only reason I'm coming here. No, the main pull is that this heist is one of the few with guaranteed yellow SWAT spawns, and naturally I need to get one for myself. By that point, the heist was all but secured as I secured my 3 bags of the good stuff. One whiff of this sky blue meth and you'll be too hopped up to notice just how buggy Scarlet and Violet is. As for the Ukrainian job I did after, that was also fairly straightforward. Not much else that happened aside from Hoxton showing off his rather fitting pink and yellow outfit and mask combo. Nothing threatening in the end. Boatload was the next destination, and a chance for 2 of 3 different names to add to the growing collection. Though, sadly, I wasn't quick enough on the Pokeball to capitalize, leaving me with only the FBI field agent. Better than nothing, I suppose, and we will have the chance to get the other 2 units later. After that, it was just a routine holdout. I initially thought the Santa's workshop that followed would be straightforward as well, but there were multiple points where the cops threatened to overrun our group and forced me to swap out some of my jokers lest they get turned into dust. I also lost my sentry again due to a pair of bulldozers double teaming on the poor thing and laying waste to it. But once the madness subsided, I secured the required presents and hoofed it out of there. Up next to First World Bank, and at this point in the crime spree, stealth isn't really much of an option anymore. So I dispatched Kingler and Pikachu as my front line to get everything ready. Plus, with my rebuilt sentry guarding the computer hack, things were going great. Their potency was very apparent as cops were practically being shot out of the sky, such was their precision. Once inside the gate, I pulled Pikachu and Kingler out and got the 2 pieces of Thermite into place. It was here that I noticed that my Jokemon's identities were getting scrambled, as I'm certain that Incineroar is more than just a pistol-wielding security guard. This just seems to be a problem with the mod sometimes. I decided to remedy this by recruiting another shotgunner heavy SWAT, and thankfully that seemed to fix things. Once inside the vault, things threatened to get messy, but my jokers and my sentry were more than enough to hold the bulldozers off, and once I was revived, I could watch Jigglypuff and Venusaur tag team to dispose of the stragglers. I went for all of the money, after all more time equals more level up opportunities, before recalling my Jokomon and pushing for the office escape. Despite going grey in this area, this is where a plan suddenly popped to mind. This section has scripted hostage rescue unit spawns as well as veteran FBI agents, and I still needed to get both of those after missing out on them in Watch Dogs Day 2. I did actually forget that I couldn't get the veteran agent owing to the shotgunner I recruited to fix the identity crisis, but I at least got myself the rare hostage rescue unit, so I didn't walk away from this encounter empty-handed. Because the new recruit wasn't too keen on following me, he got pretty badly swamped in enemy spawns, but we were able to secure the money and got out before he could be killed off. That was where I decided to cut things for Day 2. Despite how eventful things have been, we still have a long way to go. With my team back in tip-top fighting shape at the start of Day 3, we started things off with the transport train heist. I'm aware of how long this video is already, so I'll just keep things concise unless something interesting happens or unless I get a new recruit. After getting physically body blocked on the stairway and needing to scale the side of the cliff like a Skyrim horse, I breached the train cars and got 2 pairs to guard the thermal drills, with Duke and my sentry covering the walkway. One of the pairs, Dallas and Onyx, got to fight a bulldozer together once the vault they were guarding opened, and their partnership was well rewarded as Dallas laid on the damage with his LMG before Onyx finished him off with a shotgun. Once all of the loot was in sight, it was actually straightforward to get the bags moving, as I could simply have Hoxton and Kingler guard the loot at the end of the zipline, collecting the bags and moving them to the truck before escaping. Time consuming, but doable in the end. The next one I chose to do was No Mercy, and this was by far the most profitable heist to ever choose when it came to leveling the crew up. Being a massive corridor shooting heist means I can simply have the team stand together in a hallway and hail gunfire down it to just mow down whoever feels dumb enough to try and approach. By the time I breached the first door and needed to hold the ICU corridor down, I lost my sentry to a merciless skulldozer charging it down, but I managed to leverage Aegislash and Kingler's levels to 81 and 50 respectively, the two having racked up 72 kills between them. Subbing them out for the completely healthy Pikachu and Zubat, things got even better. Pikachu managed to take the fight to so many cops with his Compact 5, leveling up rapidly as he did. By the time I called the squad back together in the lift, Pikachu had cracked level 78, meaning he wasn't that far behind Aegislash. RNG rolled as a cloaker ambush right at the end, with Zubat popping one immediately to reach level 50 himself before Dallas and Pikachu took out the other. A very nice end to a very successful mission, all things considered. With a well-earned heal at their backs, Brooklyn Bank was up next. Another holdout, so as you can imagine, I was more than prepared to take this on. Aegislash certainly fancied himself too, as he picked off multiple enemies with ruthless efficiency, managing to get all the way up to level 90 within 32 kills before he became overwhelmed and needed to be pulled back. I was briefly besieged in the vault owing to the sheer numbers around us, but once I made a break for it, the cops didn't seem to pay me any mind as I raced for the van. Another art gallery was up next, and since there was very little chance I'd actually stealth anything, I just employed the same security room tactic as last time. Pikachu popped off, I got up close to see Kingler dressed up as Skull Kid, and we were able to make our escape with the 6 required paintings. Healing back up, it's back to where the run began in Counterfeit, where I stealthed the first portion fully this time. To be completely honest, I did nothing differently compared to the first go-around, so I don't know why the stealth portion worked as intended this time. But I managed to recruit 2 more Bronco Cops to the cause, so yay for me. Considering that they don't scale with Crime Spree, at least I don't think they do, they didn't do all that terribly before getting overran. After blowing open the safe and getting the printing plates, I made the space for myself to push into the sewers and made a break for it. It was after that heist that I decided to shuffle the troops a little bit, keeping Aegislash, Onix, Kingler, Pikachu and Zubat on the top rungs of the ladder, but giving promotions to Incineroar the Shotgunner from Diamond Store and Magikarp the Zeal Marksman. Helped the ladder out a bit, you know? I wouldn't know how the changes would affect things on the clubhouse run that followed, seeing as how Onix and Aegislash were once again top build for this one. Keeping the entire team on the upper balcony meant that they had complete control on the Overwatch positions for the junkyard while I hung back and got the address. Nothing too straining in the end. Healing back up again, it's time for another tricky rerun. Bullock's Mansion. With any luck, it'd be the last time I'd have to come here to grab who I needed. Here, the game crashed before I even entered the heist, so we're off to a good start. Once I got into the heist proper, I got caught almost immediately, but I was able to grab the hyena-masked guard, so that wasn't bad. The problem was, however, that I couldn't find the remaining guard I needed to round out the count for the bullet guards. After a point, I just had to give up and accept that I'd have to come back to this place a third and final time just to get what I'm after, which is the tiger-masked guard if memory serves. I then decided to convert one of the federal heavy SWATs with a shotgun of his own. Technically, he doesn't count towards the Jokerdex requirement as I didn't need many regional exclusives, but a Alolan Executor here might prove to be invaluable for that inevitable third run back I'm going to have to do. Bullock gets eaten again because Bullock is not a water type or even remotely interesting, and we held out for the drill with Squirtle making a case for himself by racing his way up to level 41. The final holdout in the courtyard, however, was the most interesting part, as I got to witness the rise of an unexpected powerhouse. Quagsire. He was spawned in at level 32, mind you, and he made it to 43 by the time we were ready to leave, with 40 kills to his name. Great, except half of my regulars were badly wounded after that heist. Perhaps promoting Quagsire to the top dogs could help with that. Clearly, I was going to need to get creative on interception if I was to keep my small army of gunners as it was. After a rough ride to the front of the train, I spawned Incineroar and the newly promoted Quagsire in to begin laying waste to the biker boss. Despite having bulldozer levels of HP, she wasn't able to hold out for long once the entire crew filed in to focus her down, with Incineroar even getting the prestigious honor of landing the finishing blow to her and gaining 4 levels for free. I did run into quite the roadblock on the way back, but Duke saved the run with his Inspire, allowing me to finish the job and giving the crew a much needed heal. So, naturally, I decided to make the ever-so-smart decision of seeing what would happen if I had this group tackle Safehouse Nightmare. To cut a long story short, it goes very badly. I guess the idea was that I could get some free level ups for some of them, seeing as how there are only Cloakers and Headless Dozers in this one. Suffice to say, it didn't work. Several members of my team got badly injured, My sentry got obliterated, and I was out of the fight within 8 minutes to mark only the first stock loss. Okay, lesson learned, don't do that again that late into a crime spree. Needing to bounce back immediately, I opted to swap out for the diamond, with full-blooded intent to just storm the place in loud. This proved to be a much better decision, especially for Pikachu, with him dinging level 90 just over a minute into proceedings. You'd think with his level of proficiency that it gets better when it comes to him, and you would be correct. He had leveled up like crazy by the time we got to the second time lock, and racked up more kills than Dallas and Hoxton. Within the chaos of the inner halls, he continued to hold his own with the rest of the crew, before using his 51st kill of the heist to become the first of my Jokomon to reach that prestigious level 100. At least that marked one of my side quests as done for this run. And with well over half of his health bar still in the tank, he could continue to leave the cops thunderstruck as I grabbed the diamond. By the time I felt I needed to sub him out, he had churned out 66 kills in this heist. What a beast. I subbed him in for Quagsire, hoping he'd have anywhere near the same effect. Considering he was Thresh and up in the late throes of the heist, he didn't do too badly at all, with a rapid-fire race to level 55 as I secured the victory, breaching the 300 mark on the spree. I followed that up with something short and sweet for the crew to heal from, which was the simple task of wiping out the Mendozas. I also used the opportunity to grab a veteran FBI agent to add a name to the decks late on. Overall, things were very safe and secure. Another interesting test on the cards as I pushed on to beneath the mountain. Zubat was the one who benefited the most in the initial stages, making it to level 65 when I moved up to the top of the mountain as we pushed against the murky water tide. There was a little bit of struggle to get the satellite dishes destroyed, but once we grouped up at the helicopter, everything became simple again. Next up was the second Hell's Island, where Duke's aura was apparently too strong for the game to handle. Once back inside, however, it was a rough but straightforward endeavour, using the ECM to convert the surprise turret as we pushed to the roof. Up there, several more of my Jokomon came in clutch to help the push to the helipad, but the high-power Murky units shredded through several of my pals' health bars, namely those of Zubat, Jigglypuff, and Venusaur. Nightclub is generally a fairly easy affair, mainly focusing on just splitting the group up to cover each safe's drill because of course I'll secure all bags to burn some time. Ironically, it's the wait for the escape that proved to be the hardest part of all of this, hiding out in the toilets as every medic and bulldozer in Washington filed in to flush us out. But once the assault died down, I was able to make a break for it. Rocking up to the Mendoza airport immediately afterwards, I used the saw to get the vans open and located the fuel tanker to destroy the guns. From there, I had the crew stationed outside to help cover me as I moved each of the weapon caches one by one to the tanker. Incineroar was not really up to the task for this one, but Zubat and Quagsire were much better suited to handle it, with Zubat reaching level 70 and Quagsire reaching level 60. That was where I left it for day 3. For day 4, I decided to begin with a test of the team's resolve via Golden Green Casino, figuring that a multi-point defense mission might be a good test to see how well they perform this late into a crime spree. It's a shame I didn't have the foresight to heal the team, but that's past me's problem. It's clear by now that my build is not really well suited to handle the high power enemies outside of the injector, and it was also starting to show with some of my converts. With some personnel shifts, I finally got a system in place when starting the BFD proper. Dallas and my sentry guarding the BFD, Hoxton and Venusaur defending one power box, and Duke and Quagsire guarding the other. It was a long and torturous process, and I did swap Dallas and Duke's positions at one point, but I was eventually able to hold out until the vault was breached. From there, I simply had the gang stationed around the BFD itself whilst I cleared the vault of all of its goodies. Using the blimp escape was ideal, as it meant I could let them hold their positions as I threw the money up to the surface. Afterwards, I brought the dentist's treasure box and reconvened with the others, although I accidentally cleared the heist before getting all of the loot. Oh well, I suppose getting the full heal was reward enough. Hotline Miami would prove to be a better test of the team's killing power, and a good place to potentially come closer to bringing my OG killer Aegislash to that coveted level 100. While he did reach 97, the high power enemy shredded him and Onyx pretty badly, forcing me to sub them out. Once into the basement, things became much easier to handle, getting the address as Zubat and Quagsire leveled up some more, and Duke clearing out the snipers on my way to the DeLorean. The undercover that came after didn't start on the best of terms, needing the rooftop holdout, but at least having a personal army at my back could make things a little easier. It seemed to be the case for Zubat as he quickly raced up to level 80 by killing an Ismadoza. The sheer quantity of spawns on the roof did threaten to overrun us, but we held our ground, staying alive as we began to push off of the roof, with Quagsire gaining 3 levels in an instant by taking out an Ismadoza of his own. It was pretty clear that a bond between him and Zubat was starting to form. Zubat's battering did give us the space we needed to get the Taxman into the building, and while Quagsire wasn't in much better shape, his rapid-fire shield-to-cloak tag team with Dallas proved that he still had some fight left in him. We definitely had quite the interrogation party with the Taxman while we grouped around him and beat the info out of him, which doesn't break Jokermon rules, just so you know. The hacks only went down twice, both with less than a second on the clock, but other than that, it was little more than a minor setback in the end. With another full restore, we now had a safe house raid to repel. This was another pivotal moment in this challenge, as despite the volume of high damage attackers, Aegislash was just about able to eke in enough work to reach level 100 himself. At least Pikachu won't be lonely at the top anymore. Things got pretty dicey during the last wave as my sentry was swarmed by another Skulldozer, and the sheer quantity of spawns almost did Quagsire in and threatened Jigglypuff and Venusaur as well as me personally. But I was finally able to make use of Stockholm Syndrome Ace to both refresh my downs and allow me to swap in some fresh personnel for the closing stages of the raid. If this was a sign of things to come, then my collective would be in trouble. With a heavily injured team on deck, I'd need another burn heal pronto with Transport Park. It was clear now that the safe house raid was a sign that we were seemingly reaching our limits, as the cops now had enough DPS to start reliably taking my boys down. I needed to swap through a large number of my troops to get the job done, but I managed to get the bags across the park while the assault was down and let my crew cover me as I recovered the 5 bags needed to get my team healed again. Next up was a loud jewelry store, and as you'd expect this late into a crime spree, things quickly get out of hand. Sure, Quagsire and Zubat were able to push their way closer to level 100, but I was getting shredded badly and needed to use Stockholm Syndrome Ace to get myself back to the battlefield. Simply put, if I tried to push the objectives during an assault, I was going to get absolutely mauled. This meant I was stuck here longer than I wanted to, but I got there in the end. The rerolled street escape that followed afterwards was also fairly simplistic, given that my crew AI is molded to prioritize snipers. After a short but tense holdout in the storage room, I simply booked it to the chopper, not wanting to stick around longer than I reasonably needed to. A rerun of Brooklyn Bank was on the cards next, as I decided to add a level 32 shotgunner beat cop to the roster for no tangible reason. With another drilling session we needed to do, I had the group hold up around the vault side, allowing things to become fairly simple until the time came to escape, waiting for the assault to die down before making the death charge to the van, helped by Kingler taking out the sniper overlooking my escape route. We've breached the 400 mark now, meaning the home straight to reach linked milestone is in sight. It's now time for Greenbridge, and frankly I had no idea at the time just what was in store. Given the circumstances, I was a little impressed that the crew could hold the vans as well as they did, and with the prisoner found early, we could begin forging a path back to the scaffolding. Naturally, things became hectic once the time came to defend Kazuo Mishima, and I also couldn't help but notice that I never renamed my shotgunner cop from Brooklyn Bank. Still, he held himself together admirably alongside the ever-consistent Quagsire, while I decided to defend my boys by shooting the chopper turret, with the medic sparing my blushes as I almost killed this tan unit in the process, and that would have just not been cool. Thankfully, the pilot got the pickup on the first attempt, meaning I could recall my jokers before escaping the tower under the cover of ECM feedback. From there, I had Venusaur and Jigglypuff defend me as I tried to crawl my way to the exit while avoiding the turret and the sniper, but my crew were vigilant enough that I just felt comfortable booking it to the end instead. It was time for another prison nightmare with the emphasis on nightmare. The sheer number of spawns combined with their insane damage at this point proved too much for even my level 100 Aegislash who I'd needed to recall. It just seems to be a thing with Jokermon and Jokers in general. The most effective and damaging units tend to also be the ones that are the most fragile. It took until the end of the first assault before I could get enough space to even consider entering the prison complex, and even then it was not a clean entry by any stretch of the imagination. My Kingpin syringe is effectively the only thing holding me together in most of these battles. Inside the prison, Incineroar and Zubat tried to be helpful, but to be fair to them, it's hard to be good team players when you can get mauled in seconds by just about anyone that happens to spawn in. Not helping matters is that the police actually stopped the timer, leading to me having to stay out here for longer than I would reasonably want to. In spite of everything, I survived, meaning I could take the first opportunity possible to grab my med supplies and activate the escape portion of this nightmare. Once up onto the train, it becomes somewhat easier to deal with things, especially since my still unnamed Shotgunner Cop and Quagsire were on hand to cover me in the train. No idea what Quagsire did to level up 3 times in an instant, but it may have had something to do with the takedown of the Ismadoza, so I'll gladly take the positives from this. The final run down the bridge was a mess, but I held out for Hoxton to save me, allowing me to inject one last dose of the good stuff to cover my final run. At the very least, I finally remembered to give a name to that plucky shotgunner beat cop, who I decided to name Pidgey. Once again, it's back to the sunny confines of Florida, and once again I was able to complete the stealth portion without any issues, meaning we can recruit 2 more beat cops into the personal army of Matt. Granted, with everything that we were now experiencing, I wasn't going to count on either of them putting in much work this late into the run. It was scary, but about as by the numbers as it can be. Making sure to have the entire squad healed for the battles to come, it was onto the bomb dockyard, and no way in hell was I going to be able to stealth this one. So instead it was best to hold down the warehouse until we could use blast burn on the dock gates. If anything, what would prove to be scary would be the sheer quantity of snipers. But as long as I could mock those things, my teammates could at least gun them down. Off the assault, I could get a start on the hack and work on assigning a member of the death squad to each power box. It worked well. Until it didn't, and my sentry suffered another swift and merciless death. It wasn't looking good, but I didn't lose hope, managing to hold out until the ship started moving and recruiting another blue SWAT to the team. In truth, I wasn't actually planning on having them be permanent after seeing their level, but they were saved by the bell when I went into custody, so I guess we have another new member of the entourage. Stockholm Syndrome Ace worked a treat, as it gave me the opportunity to spawn Pikachu and Zubat to cover me so that I could move the bomb parts to the boat in the sloppiest and most dangerous final push yet. Onto another art gallery raid, and I decided to switch tactics. Since prolonged combat was quickly becoming an option I couldn't take, I instead decided to pack the saw and tried to cut out as much of the middleman as I could by just sawing the bars off the paintings. This worked like a charm, and with minimal fuss too, making it out in just over 4 minutes. Not too bad given the pressure we were coming under out there. If you happen to still be keeping score, you'll know that we only need 2 more units to capture before the run comes to an end. Those being the last of Bullock's guards and the undercover agent from Reservoir Dogs' Garnet Boutique. Scarface Mansion obviously wouldn't help with that, but at the very least I could get the jump on Sosa's guards at the beginning and have my sentry make short work of the head of security. Plus, thanks to some good old Payday 2 jank, I can safely skip the wirebox objectives and just get into the mansion in one go thanks to my crew AI's interaction time buffs. So that's neat. The action became quite a lot for the crew, and I was having to start picking out some members from the reserves to fight alongside me, but I was able to keep things moving all the way to the champion fight against Ernesto himself. And given the combined might of my team, yeah, he unsurprisingly suffered a similar fate to Hector and was brought down with the real superpower of teamwork and guns. My boy Hoxton even got the honor of dealing the final blow to the guy too. From there, we were able to hold out in his former office, steal 6 bags of powder, and made our leave to earn another heal. The park escape that came up next was fairly tense, all things considered. Since holding out in an open area like this wouldn't be smart, I instead chose to slowly circle the park until the van arrived, which worked surprisingly well, all things considered. Then, with a re-roll, I chose to hit up the harbour. Given that we're operating close to full capacity in terms of crime spree modifiers, this would be a real test for my crew and just how much they can take, as well as my micromanagement skills as a trainer. To be honest, the crew AI and my Kingpin syringe kept things going for far longer than they had any right to, using the saw to quickly grab the money bags I needed. Incineroar and Pikachu was surprisingly resilient throughout it all, giving me the cover I needed to wait on the boat and close this transport out. Now we're moving back to the clubhouse to deal with the Overkill MC, who were alerted by Kingless spawning himself upstairs of his own accord. It was all going well though, and all it took was... oh god damn it. That sentry gun is just not surviving anything anymore, is it? Speaking of not surviving, I tried getting a dominated cop to Stockholm Syndrome myself from, although I don't complete the process when I go into custody. This usually wouldn't be a problem, but in the few seconds of me going into custody, I guess he must have slipped out of grasp because I couldn't get the skill to proc. Now I was down to the final stock and still needing those last two elusive mons to capture. I decided to use the opportunity to reroll to Ukrainian job and make use of some shape charges and an ECM jammer to speedrun the thing. That's not breaking any Jokermon rules, no one's getting killed by those shape charges after all. Time to move on to swing vote, and somewhat unprompted, I went for a stealth clear. Thanks to an unexpected double keycard in the locker room, I could knock out 3 machines in one go, then working out another up top, then finding the remaining 2 on the opposite side. Though I did get spotted in the process of getting the 6th. Luckily, because the guard was an idiot, he decided to approach me, allowed himself to get hit, and got blocked from radioing for help, giving me just enough time to get the hacks completed and allowing me to just run for the exit immediately. I did attempt to reroll into a dragon heist, which gave yet another crash, and bringing in the madness once actually in the heist itself. Once the drill was up, I had the crew AI defend it, and used the sentry gun and the jokers to stop the cops from releasing tear gas in the vents. I decided to try and get the terminal hack going in the meantime, figuring that the cops would be too thinly spread to go after everything at once, which was in fact wrong. Luckily, once the drill was done, I could throw my sentry off the dumpster, allowing me to bring a new firing squad to defend the terminal. This worked like a charm, getting me the blowtorch and bringing me into the final portion of the heist, grabbing the dragon statue and beginning my Team Rocket-esque exit via C4. Quagsire in particular was on point during this sequence, putting in enough work during the final holdout in the alleyway to join the level 100 squad before we made our exit. To make things even better, the next heist we could go into was the Garnet Group Boutique, the Day 2-1/1-2 of Reservoir Dogs. A late chance to take one of the 2 remaining uncaptured units to the squad. Thanks to the power of the Kingpin Syringe and my teammates, I was able to rapidly capture the level 32 undercover agent under the fire of the ambush, who I decided after the heist to name after Meowth. It just wouldn't be right to not have a Jokermon on our team that knew the move Payday after all. From there, we could work on the remaining objectives, getting the crew in position to hold at the vault door. The sentry, unsurprisingly, wasn't able to hold out, and my Jokers didn't seem to be doing much better. That said, probably because there were so many entities on the map, I could brute force the vault door open. Zubat ended up being saved by the bell after being rapidly overrun, and I ultimately decided to just escape the boutique to try and make things easier. Straight into the loving arms of a minigun dozer. Once the assault was over, I had the squad hold the street to the best of their ability while I raced to the vault, which suddenly became gassed. I never even knew that those effects were proximity based, so that's something. When it became clear that the things were just not going to let up, I decided to throw caution to the wind and just brute force the objective. It was absolutely harrowing, but after 17.5 minutes, I could go for the escape portion of this heist. Perfectly timed too, since I was grey going into it. Thankfully, once I did make it off the street and through the escape route, I could confirm my victory, leaving me with only one more unit to capture. Even more notably, we had now reached Crime Spree rank 485, meaning we had overtaken Link at the summit of the Crime Spree rankings, and the good times could keep rolling on. This was followed up by 4 stores, which I could knock out with no difficulty by just using my ECM jammer on one of the ATMs, leading to a breather clear following the true test that awaited me. The 3rd and final round against Bullock's Mansion. I never even got a first attempt in at first, as the game once again crashed before the heist could start. In the 2nd attempt, I was actually able to get into the heist this time, searching for the final guard I needed for the collection, which is this one with the tiger mask. From there, I could work my way through the heist, struggling still against the increasingly powerful assaults until I could make it to the man himself and get him shocked once again. But then, just as I was ready to lock in for the first of 2 final holdouts, the game once again crashed. I was going to have to do things all over again if I wanted that last elusive piece of the Joker decks, but I was not about to throw in the towel this close to completion. On the third and final run back I would have, I jumped the guard I needed, bringing him into the fold immediately and getting to work. With the performance drops, I could only hope that the game could hold for long enough to at least clear this heist for the final time. And despite how absolutely merciless it was, including my sentry gun biting it once again, I was able to beat the odds, able to hold out for long enough to once again breach the inner sanctum and release Jaws from his cute and festive shark tank for the last time this run. You kind of have to feel bad for Bullock in a way. All of these crashes make it seem like some sort of twisted Groundhog Day loop where he just gets killed via becoming shark bait over and over. Pikachu helped Zubat level up multiple times during the drilling of the late Bullock's safe, meaning it was now time to drop to the courtyard for the final holdout. The Federal Heavy Unit, Alolan Executor, was finally set to feature one last time to help us over the line. With me just cowering and hoping that the game wouldn't crash before I could leave, I finally saw Bile arrive and wasted no time in getting out of there. At long last, we have completed the Joker decks that we set out for ourselves, meaning that the only objective left is to push the crime spree as far as we can take it. Not least because we had now breached the 500 mark for the first time. We really were in uncharted waters now. Right Track, thankfully, was a nice freebie after that achievement, as I wondered just where to take it from here. I decided that Hell's Island would be a good test for this part of the run, but naturally I forgot to heal my squad again. Remarkably, it didn't make that much difference during the initial ambush, as we grouped up to keep on top of the Murky squad. It didn't help that Magikarp, for whatever reason, just decided to go on a little adventure of his own. Still, we were able to hold firm, with Magikarp managing to score a rare double kill in quick succession before we could work on pursuing Bane. I was not afraid, with Lapras at my back being able to staple tasers to the prison walls, such was their determination to serve me. Before long, we had pushed up to the roof and had begun our romp to bring Bane out of Hell's Island. With most of my mainstays injured, I was now having to rely on the rookies from the bench to carry us home. In spite of this, Pidgey and Farfetch'd were not afraid of the literal army bearing down on them, and my sentry helped clear the objective, allowing me to sub them out for Hypno and Snorlax, the Yellow SWAT and Tan SWAT respectively. Despite the Tan SWAT being named Snorlax, it was Hypno who seemed to be asleep based on his performance. But at least their combined efforts were able to give us enough time to clear this brutal heist. Thankfully, I did remember to heal the crew at this point, leading into more Crasher. Getting all of the damage done was easy enough, since I could actually shoot at all of the glass panels and other products inside the mall, meaning the actual challenge was to hold out until Bile arrived. The bag store did get a little crowded, I'll admit, but it was a holdout I was successful in, escaping in just over 4.5 minutes. This moves us on to the bank heist, where I decided to tap into some unique tech. By using the zipline asset, I could spawn my Jokers onto the rooftop parallel to the bank, giving Incineroar and Pikachu an Overwatch position for the upcoming Loud heist with my dripped out teammates. This experiment worked like an absolute charm, with the only reason it wasn't going to work being the arrival of a SWAT van turret that could target them. It's a neat idea, but something that obviously doesn't work with those things around. It didn't slow my roll for long though, as I powered through the remaining heist and made it out with a single bag of money, with Zubat even managing to get a sneaky level up right before the heist clear screen. I tried to seek things into a Brooklyn bank, which saw yet another crash. It's clear that this may be my most unstable run yet, despite it being the most successful too. I decided to try and get another SMG-wielding beat cop into the squad to at least try to help things along a little. It's debatable how much it helped, to be honest, but at the very least I had the drill as my breaching tool again, which is my preferred method for this heist. And all it cost was my sentry. Again. The arrival of a SWAT turret didn't make things any easier, but Squirtle could compensate by being brave enough to have a stare down with a Skulldozer. The squad's efforts allowed me to reach the medallion once again, and when the van arrived, I wasted no time sprinting there. Next up was the downtown transport mission, and after the customary sentry death at this point, I found myself fleeing into the neighbouring buildings to try and find some respite. This remarkably worked, as it gave me the space I needed to work my way back to the vans and start to crack the deposit boxes. Unsurprisingly, the assault continued to rip through me and my forces, but despite some of the most accurate snipers I've ever seen, I was able to hold out until I could gather all 5 money bags in the loot cage. It was clear that I was beginning to approach the limit for this setup. It's no more apparent than with White Xmas. A simple heist on the surface that was truly becoming a fight for survival. I decided to recruit another blue SWAT to help be cannon fodder if needs be, and he was almost shredded to death while I was waiting on the helicopter to land, but he was just about saved by the bell. Which moves us on to the Go Bank siege, where the SWAT turret once again decided to wreak havoc on my team. Despite all of the madness, I was able to breach the vault and get at the money bag inside with my saw. Duke, Pikachu and Zubat would be able to defend the cage as I worked on grabbing as much of the loot as possible. Somehow, we were able to hold out until the plane grabbed the cage, and as soon as I got the opportunity, I wasted no time slipping past a minigun dozer guarding the manhole cover and raced through the sewers to safety, with my sentry once again biting the dust in covering my escape. It was time to move on to Boatload, another relatively simple one where I could just focus on holding out within the confines of the warehouse. Unlike the previous missions, this felt a lot more manageable, able to hold out for long enough where we could secure all 6 bags of coke via boat. Though by now, I was thinking that brute forcing the end of the run wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, given how long this has been going at this point. So, to try and achieve that, it was off to Bomb Forest. I'm not gonna lie though, it kind of had the opposite effect. Usually a wide open area with lots of traversal space should be a bad thing for my AI compatriots, but Bomb Forest is so big that it takes a while for any threats to actually make it to a holdout position. Combine that with the fact that the vault was towards the top of the hill, and my teammates that were stood on top of the train car had some of the best sightlines ever. So good was this decision, in fact, that the Quagsire-Zubat combination came through once again, and managed to bring the former into the elusive level 100 club. Surprised by just how well we were able to hold out, I breached the train vault and started to haul the bomb parts out. Because I planned ahead to have the helicopter drop off, all this required was a set of pushes to get each part secured for a surprisingly simple victory. At that point, I was beginning to wonder if this team could even truly be stopped. Well, with the team healed up one more time, we'd soon find out on the brutal Heat Street. After coaxing Duke into actually coming along, I decided to take the initial romp through the streets of Manhattan slowly so that my Jokermon could actually keep up with me. This, of course, meant that I'd get shredded by all of the spawning mobs in turn, but that's a price you pay, I suppose. By the time I reached Matt Roscoe's car, though, it was becoming obvious that my Jokers were likely not going to live while they were still on the streets. At least these two lads were relaxed about the whole affair. The holdout in the container yard was about as high octane as it could be, trying to keep my highest tier units as healthy as possible in order to have their expertise on the final parts of the heist. And unsurprisingly, most of them just weren't equipped for late crime spree intensity. The likes of Venusaur, Incineroar, Magikarp and Jigglypuff all fought valiantly, don't get me wrong, but when each unit has so much health and can dish out so much damage on top of every other loud modifier working overtime, well, there's only so much they can do. We did manage to wait out Roscoe gasping for air, but now came the second half of the grueling gauntlet. Finally pushing out of the parking lot, we now had to push up all the way to the top of the overpass while trying to micromanage my units and Roscoe. As you'd expect, I was going to have to rely on a lot of low-level rookies from the bench if I were to stand a chance of clearing this one. Though with the game throwing twin minigun dozers at us, I didn't have much hope as I went down again and again and again. All while my Jokermon's health bars were getting ground to dust against the sheer strength of it all. I even went into custody and rashly used up my Stockholm Syndrome charge, which may have proven to be the nail in the coffin for this run. We did manage to get past the gate, but in this alleyway, the run began to fall apart. With an assault just starting, there was no conceivable chance of getting Roscoe moving anytime soon, forcing us to hold out as best as we could. Unsurprisingly, I went into custody again, and with no easy way out, I had to watch my crew AI and my sentry gun fight off the seemingly never-ending army spawning from both directions. Unsurprisingly, my sentry did not survive the battle. But against the odds, the team of 3 managed to hold out for just long enough for me to get traded back in, allowing me to at least move Roscoe up as far as I could given the circumstances. I really wish I had Pikachu's power for this one, I won't lie. In desperation, I decided to try and flee back to the parking lot, hoping that doing so would break the AI some more as I grabbed some more med supplies. It didn't work as intended, given the welcoming committee I ran into when I came back. The worst part was that, with all of the fighting earlier, most of my team outside of my heavy hitters were heavily wounded, as would be compounded by the tragedy that occurred after 22 minutes, as Diglett the heavy SWAT unit had spawned in with literally no health after the battle he endured, and was promptly and ruthlessly taken down. It's honestly surprising how it's only taken until now for a proper Jokermon death to occur, but sadly he would not be the last to fall. After a long moment of tension and no medic bags to fall back on, we were able to push slightly further up the path with our Team Rocket grunt in tow, and Pidgey was working overtime to try and hold the run together. Sadly, Team SWAT ended up scoring a triple takedown combo, ripping down both Snorlax the heavy shotgunner and Bellsprout the Bronco cop before bringing me into custody for the third time this heist. But because of an earlier civ we tied up, the team were able to pick their way out of there and lasted long enough to trade me back, straight into a dire situation. This forced me to hide as I relied on Bronco Cop Rapidash and veteran FBI agent Eevee to try and defend me while the boys regrouped. This did not end well for Rapidash, who was swiftly overwhelmed and taken out. Then Butterfree the blue SWAT was also clipped of its wings while I couldn't even watch due to a well-timed flashbang. Against all odds, I was traded back from custody again, leaving me scratching my head as to pick a defender. I decided to pick out Quagsire and the injured Mew for the task, but even the raw power of the SMG beat cops was struggling to keep up at this point. But we were eventually able to make some real headway and pushed up to the base of the overpass. Things were bleak and many of our Jokermon were on death's door, but we still had to persevere, especially since we were off an assault, making this the best possible time to move the group. Unsurprisingly, I went back into custody again, but with the dominated cop on the bridge, I felt like this wouldn't be too bad, allowing me to be brought back into the action. Finally, after under 40 minutes and more downs than I can remember, we were finally able to push Roscoe to the top of the overpass. It was heavily unlikely that we'd be able to clear the place out in time to escape early, and my desperation was starting to sink in as I decided to recruit a random heavy SWAT to at least serve as a distraction. With my dying breath as the random recruit I picked up perished in the hail of gunfire, I accidentally converted one final level 30 heavy SWAT, just as Hoxton and Duke were seemingly dominating another for me to be respawned from. But it just wasn't to be, as the duo's inattentiveness allowed one of the cops to free his buddy, bringing an end to such a climactic battle in the streets of New York. Which seems oddly appropriate, really. Because of that late conversion though, that random recruit ended up being saved by the bell, meaning I could name one last Jokermon before the run was to be called. And naturally I named him Charizard, because why not? With that, the mammoth Pokemon Trainer Crime Spree run comes to an end at a staggering rank of 574, easily eclipsing Link's rank and setting a new personal best for the Smash Bros. Heisting challenges. In a way, I both am and am not surprised by that outcome. Yes, I was handicapped by being unable to actually do much for 95% of the run, but I did the Link run without mods, and obviously this one had a large amount of them. So, understandably, there's a bit of an asterisk next to the trainer's rank in the chart, but I suppose it does leave room for potential reruns if that's something you're interested in. The sheer amount of experience gained from the journey was easily enough for me to fill out my Infamy EXP pool too, and this proved to be the most important level for it, at least in my opinion. As with it, I could not only achieve the final crash of the challenge, but also unlock Infamy rank 87, and with it, the gold-plated weapon skin, which is something I wanted to achieve in this game at some point. As you'd expect, I celebrated the occasion by coating my guns gold, my hat gold, and donning a gold suit and diamond gloves, as how else am I supposed to celebrate reaching the top of the Smash Bros. Payday circuit? Obviously, we can't just end this journey here, despite how long this video's gone on for already, as we still need to pay tribute to the personal army on whose shoulders we made this run possible with. Here is the final Hall of Fame for those who managed to survive all the way through this incredible run. The unique units such as the Bullet Guards, Undercover Agent and Russian Mercs, Alolan Executor who helped with the Bullock's Mansion runs, the Fearless 5 who fell in the final Heat Street battle, and finally, the 4-strong level 100 squad in Aegislash, Pikachu, Zubat and Quagsire. In all, the surviving team of 39 racked together just under 2,700 kills across all units, and dealt a staggering 3,508,266 damage in total. That's the equivalent of just over 73 minigun doses on death sentence difficulty. Absolutely beautiful stuff. Special mention should go to the MVP convert of this run, which is the Bronco Cop Aegislash. Since their recruitment at the start of the run, they put together 455 kills and dealt 409,846 damage just by themselves. Just over 8.5 death sentence minigun doses worth. He definitely liked to eat a lot, and the taste of success was always in his mouth. That said, we shouldn't gloss over the close second on the MVP chart, Pikachu the security guard. Not only were they the first to pop level 100 out of the 4 that made it there, but they were only behind Aegislash by 5 kills total and easily eclipsed them in damage with a staggering 562,444 damage dealt, equal to well over 11.5 death sentence minigun doses. He may always get into arguments, but there's no argument from me that he was the real powerhouse of this run. As far as the crew AI goes, Duke was the clear-cut heavy hitter of the bunch. Of the completed runs, he was the MVP in a staggering 48 of the 73 heists partaken in that didn't end in a crash, and racked up 7,252 kills by himself. Clearly, that goated showing was more than enough to make up for his lackluster performance as Yusuke in the Joker run. Well, if you happen to stick around to this point, then hopefully you enjoyed that experience, because it was certainly something to say that I did this a long time ago by this point. Suffice to say, I doubt things will ever get as wild again in one of these videos, so I hope it was worthwhile. Jokermon does tend to have shiny units as well, akin to shiny Pokemon. I just never happened to recruit one here, which is a shame, but what can you do? Either way, that will be that, as this has gone on for far long enough. So throw us a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll see you on whatever I do next. Take care now.